Welcome to another edition of the Business and Personal Podcast, where we bring you closer to the people you do business with and just share good stories of things going on out there that maybe you didn't know about. And today we're excited to have on Mike McMillan. He's the president of M5 Engineering. Mike, thanks for joining us on your busy schedule around your trips to Florida.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for working around my schedule. Like I said earlier this week, I had to adjust our first date because I had to go back to Florida to visit a customer, so I appreciate that.
Always on the move. So just tell us what makes M5 unique and what exactly it is that you do.
Okay. What we do at M5 Engineering is we are a tool engineering company. Tooling engineering, which is manufacturing based. We design tools for primarily the aerospace and defense industries, but we also have the experience in automotive and automation. So that's really big in the Detroit area. There's a lot of tool and die shops. There's a lot of assembly lines being made and built here. The same thing in the aerospace side. There's a lot of manufacturing that happens right here in Detroit, where our tools that we design, which are basically, in a simple term, is assembly lines. The way parts and assemblies are being put together, they're being designed and manufactured right here. What separates us from the rest of the pack, in my opinion, is there's not a lot of people who really kind of provide the services that we provide for aerospace. There's growing up in the automotive automation sector, there's a lot of like tool and die companies or engineering companies and for the automotive automation. Years ago, GM and Ford, they stopped doing that internally, and these other companies were able to grow and become established. In the aerospace side, it just seems like every manufacturing tooling house has their own engineering department. So you may have a group or a company that's very capable as far as machining goes and fabrication, and then they have a little design group. So they have a huge capacity to manufacture, but their tooling group may be 4, 5, 6 guys or girls, whatever. So the way work comes in, you may be really busy, overload your design group's overloaded, and then once you're done, you really don't need more than a smaller group. So what we're able to do is, because we have experience in that realm, and I feel like we can just kind of jump in and help any company around provide creative quality solutions and be able to deliver those solutions as if it was from the company that hired us. Let's just say company A has a design group and there's 6 people, there's 6 engineers. Well, they need 12. They can hire M5. They can come in. We can take that excess off of their hands and then provide it back to them so they can deliver to their customer, and they can still feed their manufacturing groups through fab group and machining and assembly and all the things that go along with it. So, my experience, I came from, automotive, automation. I got into aerospace. There's only a handful of companies that were doing what we were doing, designing, manufacturing, tooling, aerospace, defense, that type of thing, in the Detroit area. Well, now that has grown into maybe 4 or 5 times what it was. So as I kind of worked my way up, I ended up at one of the other companies. I was at one place for maybe 10 to 12 years. I got recruited over to go and to run an engineering department somewhere else. That situation came up for me where, okay, geez, we got a lot of engineering work, and we have to get it done in a short amount of time, and I have a group of 10 people. What do? There was just really few options to just be able to call somebody and say, hey, can you jump in and help us? Those companies, there were some. I'd call them, I'd get them in. They were not as good as we are here in Detroit, because these companies were outside. Detroit just has a knack for manufacturing, the tooling side of it. So I always struggled with that, and what we just would end up doing is either bringing on contractors where I would just manage them, or we would just work really hard for a few months to kind of get caught up, versus everybody kind of staying on a good solid pace and then just being able to bring in resources like I'm trying to offer to help us get over the hump and then get back down to a group that we need to just maintain. So when I it finally hit me to start M5, I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do. But I'm gonna do it my way, the way that I know, being on the other side, being a customer, I wanted to offer that service how I wanted it, and so far it's worked out very well.
So your company has 40 years combined experience. You've completed 200 plus project over the years. So what is it that's kept you above the curve and helped you stay so relevant?
Yeah, so technologies in manufacturing is always changing. The use of carbon fiber and new processes, composite type materials where it's lightweight, has really kind of changed the way things are done. Everything, especially in an aircraft, it's about weight. It's got to be structurally sound. It's got to be certified material, and it's got to be lightweight. So a lot of things that were made in the past out of, let's just say, regular steel or aluminum, welded together or pieced and riveted together. A lot of that stuff's becoming formed carbon fiber style parts. So, and then obviously when you do that, as evolution keeps going, you want to have less pieces. You don't want to have a carbon fiber piece, and then have to rivet it to another carbon fiber piece and splice it together, whatever. So what's evolving, what I'm seeing evolve the most is multi-piece molds, layout molds that can form a complex carbon fiber tool or part. And then these tools are just coming apart, and there's different technologies which allow to do some things that you weren't able to do in the past. And that's constantly evolving. So that's what's been really kind of cool. It's not just, obviously you have CAD and you have 3D scanners and you have all the different, versions based on my customers. We have to change our whatever they use, if they use an NX or they use CATIA or they use, whatever it is, we have to provide that for them. But there's, on top of it, it's the way that things are just being manufactured that we have to stay on top of as well, which is really kind of interesting. Things that you weren't able to do years ago, yeah, we know how to do that now.
So you currently have several tool and die shops in your network, but you're not done expanding. You're not done adding different layers to your company. So tell us what's going on around all of that.
Well, yeah. So when I say the 300 tool and die shops, what that means is in this area. So we are in the Detroit metropolitan area. We have 300 different tool and die shops that are capable. They've been manufacturing for years and years and years. The way it works, outsourcing, using partners, strategically getting things done, you're able to utilize all that talent in this area. So we are a fairly young company, but our experience and our resources are way past our age. If that makes sense. So like machine shops, I can go down the street from where I'm at, and not just within a 2-mile radius is there probably 3 or 4 of the biggest aerospace tooling companies, but there's probably another half a dozen high-end CNC suppliers where all they do is CNC machining for companies like mine or like some of those other tooling suppliers when they get overloaded so we're able to get a lot done without actually having to maintain, all the machines and all those resources by just using each other and helping each other out.
You are adding another quality control division within the company as well, right?
Yeah, so we just expanded into adding a quality assurance group. So what we did there is we've always, internally our processes, we have quality. But working with you guys and the regroup team and Mike, kind of helped me figure out a way that we could implement that into the M5 engineering current umbrella. So what we did is we recently started a quality assurance department. We purchased some equipment, a laser tracker, API laser tracker. We purchased some software, Verisure software. So now we're not only capable of doing the full design, but we can also really focus on adding that quality service to what we do. And then also, as we do more of the internal manufacturing, we can also check to make sure that not just, at the end are things good, but we can check along the way, which will help us as we expand as well.
So you have 7 main design capabilities, Mike, and people can go on your website and look at all those into more detail. But of those, is there one that's kind of more in demand right now than ever?
Well, so of each of the capabilities, it's a different process in the manufacturing of an aircraft. So you'll have, layup molds, trims, those types of tools, which are really kind of at the smaller part detail side of it. But then, so those go hand in hand. And then the next phase is once they get those parts, well, now you have to assemble them. So that rolls into assembly jigs, which, kind of go next. And then once you get into the assembly jigs, and there's different ways that you have to rivet and assemble these parts together, so then it becomes drill jigs. Well, then you have to evolve into material handling, overhead manufacturing equipment, or just regular material handling carts and that sort of thing. So it's really depends on where the company is in their build cycle. But for us, we're working with multiple companies. So we may be doing a bunch of assembly jigs for one company, but a bunch of molds and trims for another company, and a bunch of drill plates or manufacturing equipment or moving, overhead manufacturing equipment for another company. So it's like they're all at the same time pretty even. It just depends. We may have a month where we're working more molds, and another month where we're working more assembly jigs. The end of last year, we did 40 assembly jigs in a few months. I was just out to see all them manufactured. They were all manufactured and delivered. Got a ton of great feedback on that. So what I would say we specialize in is the difficult stuff. So we really embrace the hard projects and the difficult customers sometimes. The ones who want the extra paperwork, they want the extra, they want you to go down to the detail. We focus on making sure that those types of customers are taken care of. Then when we get to the ones that are maybe not as critical, we still kind of give it that attention. And I think what that does is kind of just establishes us as a high-end, high-quality engineering group we're not just trying to get the project done, but we're trying to make sure that we don't get calls other than, hey, that was a great job.
I like to say there's riches in the niches. So if you like taking on those jobs that nobody else does, there's probably lots of opportunity out there, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Especially for us, it's and then my experience throughout working for different companies, there was always those customers that not everybody really liked because they were considered a pain. Well, once I established, I'm like, we're going to focus on those. We're going to make that our second nature, and then everything else will be easy. So yeah.
So, one thing I learned when I was doing research on your company and just for this podcast, everybody knows about 3D printers. Those have become kind of mainstream now, but 3D scanners was something new to me. What are some of the advantages of using a 3D scanner? What are the purposes for that?
So 3D scanners, the reason I mentioned that and the reason we're getting into it kind of goes hand in hand with our quality assurance group and the tooling that the equipment that we just bought. So if you ever fly and you kind of take a look at like, all right, what kind of plane am I on, and look at the year, these things are built in the 70s, 80s. They're some aircraft companies that I deal with, their tools were built in the 60s, and the airplanes are still the same because when you have to recertify FAA and all that stuff. So what's happened over the past 40, 50 years, there's a lot better technology. So CAD, everything now is on 3D CAD. Everything's verifiable. Surfaces are easy to create tooling for the surfaces because you can cut 3D CNC. Where a lot of that stuff it wasn't that way years ago. So my point is, in defense, the same kind of situation. Well, a lot of those tools are just literally there's no CAD data. There's just some old prints. They're sitting on a shelf, and if something happens to them, there's no way to, it's very difficult to try to recreate a tool from years ago, that many years ago. So 3D scanning, you can kind of go in there, you can utilize our tracker, and you can get your points, and you can establish, what's there, and then you can also create surfaces from that. But then if you take a 3D scanner, you can go ahead and get very close to what the surface of that tool is. So taking all that different data, bring it into a CAD, we can recreate surface, we can reestablish designs, editable designs for tools that right now they are, literally just old relics. They're going to need to replace, I would think, because something happens to them, you wouldn't be able to continue manufacturing. So it's basically what it sounds like. You can literally scan a part. It'll give you, surface data. It's not typically perfect. That's why you have to use it work hand in hand with the laser tracker. But by taking the two and then using our CAD experts, we could come up with new established data that before was impossible.
The other thing too, Mike, that I thought was interesting is, everybody thinks of Michigan as the auto capital of the world, but also the largest aircraft tooling and equipment supply hub in the world as well. So that has to be kind of a source of pride for your team and wanting to uphold that, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's honestly, when I first got in the aerospace side, I wasn't sure. I knew there was some, but and I worked at places that had little aerospace groups. But once I kind of got into some of the larger companies, and then things started taking off, it's really grown, and people come from all over, from Seattle, from Texas, here. Very skilled manufacturing skill set out here. I do have a funny story on that one. Two funny stories. So I was on a meeting with a customer years ago that we just got done working on an in-bar layup mold. Anybody in the business will understand it's extremely expensive, complex tools, 3-axis. It's got to be bump formed, machined. So anyway, we got through this project. It was done. Sitting about ready to ship, we get an emergency meeting. Hey, the engineering, so the parts that we were manufacturing on that tool, engineering changed them. So for whatever reason, we're working toward data. We're working with data toward the end. New data came in. It's changed pretty drastically. Everybody in the room on the other side, they had a room full, and we had a room full, and they just go, listen, here's what you have. Here's what it's supposed to be. We don't know how you're going to do it, Mike, but just work with Detroit now. And we just kind of looked at each other and said, okay, we'll get back with you. So they just said, throw it to Detroit. They're going to figure it out. And we did. So that was kind of funny. And then another one that I was on the West Coast at a show, just talking to different tooling suppliers. And this one happened to be from Seattle area. And they're like, I don't know what it is. He just goes, I don't know what it is up there in Detroit. There's something in the water. You guys just get manufacturing. And he just left it at that. He's like, where we're at, they can log like nobody's business, but where you guys at, you guys just get manufacturing. It's like in your blood or something.
Mike, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you if they want to either be on your team or just work with M5 in any way?
Okay. Yeah, so best way probably would be email me, mike.m@m5engineering.com, or you can go to our website, which is www.m5engineering.com. We're also on LinkedIn, so you can look up either M5 Engineering or Mike McMillan. We're pretty easy to get a hold of. We're in Macomb Township, Michigan. So right in the hub of, we're surrounded by tooling places. So anybody has any questions, we're here to help anyone.
Awesome. Well, way to rep Detroit and keep us as the leaders in the industry. And we look forward to continuing to get updates on your growth.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, Ryan. And I want to again thank the Regroup team. You guys, I know we're still working together on stuff, but it's really opened my mind as to how we're going to continue to grow this thing.